And so it's Liam Mahoney during Friday, June 2nd, 2023. And I'm going to read the SCP file for SCP-188. Item number SCP-188. And yes, if you are wondering, I'm trying to face further away from the camera because I'm tired of seeing my giant bobblehead in the previous video that just looks so disproportionate that it's just very distracting having a massive forehead in the video. Item number SCP-188. Object Class Safe. Special Containment Procedures. As SCP-188 poses no direct threats to any Foundation assets, SCP-188 is to be contained in Storage Unit J6-455. Its presence is to be noted during the bi-weekly survey of site assets. During this time, any environmental effects exerted by SCP-188 are to be reversed. Description: SCP-188 is a volume of iridium metal hosting, an effect that acts on a finite region around the object. With the exception of the regional effect, SCP-188 is chemically and physically an otherwise unremarkable sample iridium metal. If I'm saying that correctly. No, that's not in the file. Pronunciation. Iridium. I was saying that incorrectly. Iridium. Iridium is a chemical element with the symbol IR and the atomic number 77, a very hard, brittle, silvery white transition metal of the platinum group. It is considered the second densest naturally occurring metal with a density of 22.56 grams per square centimeters, as defined by experimental X-ray crystallography. No, that's not in the file. SCP-188 has a mass of 181.43 grams and has been cast as a cylinder with a radius of 1 centimeter and a length of 2.56 centimeters. SCP-188's current cylindrical... My god, I can't say it right. I don't know why I can't say this. Cylindrical. Yeah, that's right. Cylindrical shape is not its original form, but one convenient for experimental manipulation and storage. But one convenient, it sounds off, but that's what it says. The regional effect of SCP- God, my hair looks stupid. The regional effect of SCP-188 induces changes in the environment. The changes take the form of discrete manipulations, such as scratches on surfaces or grouping, and shaping of ambient materials such as dust. These changes emerge over time and are widespread over the entire region of the effects. The changes show a high degree of complexity and structure and have been seen to change with time. Further, the effect extends to all scales and has included exceptionally small and intricate structures. When initially contained by the Foundation, SCP-188 consistently induced fractal motifs. What does that mean? fractal is a never-ending pattern. So this is not in the file, but it's relevant because it's the pattern it produces. What are fractals? A fractal is a never-ending pattern. Fractals are infinitely complex patterns that are self-similar across different scales. They are created by repeating a simple process over and over in an ongoing feedback loop. Driven by recursion, fractals are images of dynamic systems, the pictures of chaos. Geometrically, they exist in between our familiar dimensions. Fractal patterns are extremely familiar since nature is full of fractals. For instance, trees, rivers, coastlines, mountains, clouds, seashells, hurricanes, etc. Abstract fractals, such as the Mandelbrot set, can be generated by a computer calculating a simple equation over and over. Looks like that. This crap, hold on. Fractal. And also this looks like the spawn shape of the shape in Roblox of the respawn point, which is used for respawning after you die. So these fractals could be relevant for the rebirth chamber, maybe. Seems like. What is chaos theory? Chaos is this is a long article. This will probably be the focus of the video, to be honest. But this is actually real. This is not the SCP file. What is chaos theory? Chaos is the science of surprises, of the nonlinear and the unpredictable. It teaches us to expect the unexpected. While most traditional science deals with the supposed predictable phenomena like gravity, electricity, or chemical reactions, chaos theory deals with non-linear things that are effectively impossible to predict or control, like turbulence, weather, the stock market, our brain states, and so on, which seems like the subjects related to psychology. It seems like the best way to predict these types of things would be to study physics from a psychological perspective of personifying it as having a real discernible personality and behavioral traits, like a morality to it, such as a god. Many natural objects exhibit fractal properties, including landscapes, clouds, trees, organs, rivers, etc. And many of the systems in which we live exhibit complex, chaotic behavior. Recognizing the chaotic, fractal nature of our world can give us new insights, power, and wisdom. For example, by understanding the complex, chaotic dynamics of the atmosphere, a balloon pilot can steer a balloon to a desired location. By understanding that our ecosystems, our social systems, and our economic systems are interconnected, we can hope to avoid actions which may end up being detrimental to our long-term well-being. This is actually a very well-written article. It's on a website called fractalfoundation.org. probably come back to this later. Wouldn't have found this if I wasn't reading the SCP Foundation. Principles of Chaos. The butterfly effect. This effect grants the power to cause a hurricane in China to a butterfly flapping its wings in New Mexico. It may take a very long time, but the connection is real. If the butterfly had not flapped its wings at just the right point in space and time, the hurricane would not have happened. A more rigorous way to express this is that small changes in the initial conditions leads to drastic changes in the results. Our lives are an ongoing demonstration of this principle. Who knows what the long-term effects of teaching millions of kids about chaos and fractals will be. So it seems like the high degree of understanding the world itself wouldn't be from a standstill perspective of understanding like materials standing still, but their movements. So not even necessarily while they are moving, but just the movements themselves exclusively, seems like. So it seems like dealing with chaos itself seems to lead to the greatest understanding of not just our reality now, but also why it happened and what it will lead to. And it seems like when you dive into that, the idea of conscious beings determining our reality seems more plausible from a scientific standpoint, especially when you apply these principles and they actually work. And since I actually tried to understand the real world from a psychological perspective, I could actually predict it to be completely correct 100% of the time. So it's like, even if someone tells me scientifically it isn't plausible, it still works. So it's like, I can just make a comment or draw an image or something like that, and later I'll see a much larger real effect happen later as a result of doing that. And that's a real thing I've seen happen possibly thousands of times at this point. And I've been studying it, and I've been learning how to deliberately do that, but I haven't actually used it deliberately, just because it seems like, to be honest, I did at one point, and it really didn't. It seemed the more you try to do it, the less effective it actually is. So if you want it to actually work, you just have to live your normal life and hope it does. So that's kind of what I do now. Yeah, see what happens. Unpredictability. Because we can never know all the initial also I wanted to say is that it seems like also if you wanted the character to study of understanding the world itself, it would be a very chaotic person. Because it seems like chaos is actually viewed with intelligence. And something like in fiction you'd see with very intelligent people is that generally they're either extremely chaotic or so orderly that I think they're robotic because they had to develop the willpower to control their chaos. So that's why they're so deliberate, is because they train themselves to be that way, because they have to be, because in reality they have a very chaotic nature. So that's why characters like the video I'm going to post of the Satan character in the Mark Twain claymation, I'm going to post a clip of that, is they are not only characters like Satan, things like that, whether or not they're good or evil, they are like maybe the Jester, like the Joker, or Satan, or like those jokester types of personalities. It's like, whether or not they're powerful, figures, they definitely are some of the most intelligent. And part of that is their intuitive knowledge with the chaotic elements of the world, is that they can easily just embody chaos, and with that they can just navigate through life and everything seems to work out that way with very minimal effort. And that's kind of what magic is really just chaos. Is learning to embody that. And theater too, it's like that's where theater comes from, is chaos, is understanding how can we provide order to something that's naturally doesn't have order, is really just through storytelling. It's like somehow it can be both. So if you do want to learn about that, I'm not saying whether to or not to communicate with, but because like I would probably try to get divine help in what you should do with this, but learn about angels, like the archangels, because based on the figures I know, they seem to embody that the most. So like Lucifer, for example, not the devil, which is different than Lucifer, seems to be the origin of theater itself, is what I found. So studying a figure like that would help you to know what that means. But like there's this symbology with like the masquerade. Like there's this symbol that represents it. I'm going to crop. It's also connected to the Two-Face character in Batman, but you may or may not know about that. It's like half of his face is normal, half of it is like burned from a tragedy, so it's like half of it scarred, and he makes choices of his morals of who he's going to be simply just based on a coin toss. Just like sometimes he generally used to be best friends with Batman, but then later he became his nemesis, and he'll either help Batman or fight against him, and he'll decide that just based on a coin toss. And that's what makes him such a complex figure, is that he believes that deciding what we're going to do morally is no different than just leaving it up to a coin toss. And that's what he does. So there's doesn't look exactly like how I want it, but so in theater they typically have like the symbol of theater is like the mask that's half smiling, half frowning. And so that's been a theme present for thousands of years. And I think it represents Satan. And that, or not necessarily that, but there's this concept I learned about the aromatic beings, which are like not Satan in of it's not Satan, it's actually based on the devil. That the problem is that with humanity is that our human arcanes, such as for eternal life, are the same as the arcanes used for the most evil that humanity is capable of, which are like the aromatic beings are like the root forms of the old gods and the devil and things like that. So like the demons, the most evil things you can think of, share the same arcane as human beings who I think become individuals and try to be different and actually good. is that the problem is they have the same arcane. And the thing is, you actually learn to, you have to have, as a human being, that aromatic arcane. And that's the problem with sin, is that we're not necessarily we are by our nature evil, but it's also because we're also connected to divine elements. It's also, you could say, our nature to resist it at the same time. So that's where morals come from, is that we're good and bad at the same time. And that's what theater seems to represent, is like an alternative to that constant struggle of, am I good or evil? It's like we can embody both without actually doing anything to harm anyone. And that's what theater is. It's like an outlet to understand the most chaotic elements of our origins of life. And it's like we can actually become either and both in a way we can comprehend and understand and actually study it. And that's why I think we watch TV, is because we're trying to do that. And so the thing you would want to learn about is the aromatic forms, or the aromatic arcane, which would be the serpents and the Garden of Eden. It's like we have to understand, we don't need the fruit from the tree of knowledge. That's not a necessity, and people waste their time trying to get the equivalent of that. What we need is to actually understand not only ourselves, but also our enemies, which could simultaneously be ourselves. And that is by knowing, instead of being focused on the fruit of the Garden of Eden, that we focus on who the serpent is and who we are. So if Adam and Eve knew what the serpent was and didn't think about the fruit from the Garden of Eden, then they would have, I think, not eaten from it. And they didn't know about the serpents because theater didn't exist yet, and I think that's what theater is to help us recognize those things that prevents that from happening. And that's where fiction comes from to begin with. And I think it was invented. It was an invention by an archangel to begin with, at least here on Earth. And so that's, in America, embodies it strongly, because I learned yesterday that America is different than the other parts of the world because it's not connected to the living, it's connected to the dead. So that's what makes America so different, is that it's the only place in the world rooted in in death itself, and it's based on geography. And that it's I can talk about it later because it's probably long, but just things with relating the longest cave system in the world with architecture and the stone man. And it's the longest cave system in the world, Mammoth Cave, is in the same state I live in, so it's only about 2 hours away from where I am. And it's 500 miles long or something. It's huge. And I'm just finding that there are these elements I'm going to study later related to that. But anyways, of that, for some reason in America, it's the materialism itself is based on its root connection to, I think, the Garden of Eden, of returning to when everything was just based on material, like the creation of the earth without life on it yet. And that's why Americans are so possessive and concerned about materialism, which is I thought was building up our physiology, but I'm learning is maybe embodying the arcane of the creation of the earth itself. And I used to think the Garden of Eden might have been in America, physically, but I'm learning it wasn't physically there, but it is the place to access the arcane of it. And there's this claymation that has some, the Mark Twain one, Adventures of Mark Twain. I'll post later. It's a movie that I can do that might shed some light on it, even though it's fiction. But Mark Twain's a famous American author from over 100 years ago. And the character, I think, that created theater itself, like the reason we even watch TV and have plays and fairy tales, the archangel that created that was Satan. So whether or not you are fond of him or not, he did actually create that. And by studying him or communicating with him, if you feel uncomfortable, I'm sure you could ask other angels who you are more familiar with to talk to him. You could find more about that. So I'm going to keep reading about crap, I just closed it. I need to save this. Okay. So I never talked about theater before, but I've spent so much time studying psychology, but I never talked about it, really. But anyways, unpredictability, because we can never know all the initial conditions of a complex system in sufficient, i.e. perfect, detail, we cannot hope to predict the ultimate fate of a complex system. Even slight errors in measuring the state of a system will be amplified dramatically, rendering any prediction useless, since it is impossible to measure the effects of all the butterflies, etc. in the world. Accurate long-range weather prediction will always remain impossible. And it could be that these gods that people worship, like I know Native Americans, I do believe that when they have rain dances and things like that, it's said that they can actually incite the weather to rain or prevent storms or things like that. I do believe that. And I'm thinking that maybe these gods, such as the Native Americans, that the gods they worshipped, could have been personifications of the consciousnesses that could change and determine things like the weather, or maybe even crops and things like that. And they may or may not have been inhabited by human deities, or just deities in general, like that are actual persons, or gods, or angels, or demons. But that they can be accessed through these rituals and fairy tales, and you can understand and reach those consciousnesses that determine things like weather, and actually correspond with them to incite them to do things like make it rain. It's things like that. Order/disorder chaos is not simply disorder. Chaos explores the transitions between order and disorder, which often occur in surprising ways. Mixing turbulence ensures that two adjacent points in a complex system will eventually end up in very different positions after some time has elapsed. Examples: two neighboring water molecules may end up in different parts of the ocean, or even in different oceans. A group of helium balloons that launch together will eventually land in drastically different places. Mixing is thorough because turbulence occurs at all scales. It is also non-linear. Fluids cannot be unmixed. So this actually reminds me of radiation, because radiation is the reason I converted these videos in this format to begin with. And I found they seem to be like from the imbalance of learning about nuclear physics of making atom bombs, but not actually making a bomb, just maintaining them so they don't explode, which is what causes people to die, is meaning of making a body on a smaller scale, is that it's the imbalance of heat and cold. And I found cold is, even though people don't detect it, is a physical thing just like heat. But it's in dark matter, so you can't physically find it. But heat seems to be in white matter. And if you had them in perfect balance, then it would, I think, embody heaven, which would be any thoughts you have just manifest into reality. And the problem is that with our physical bodies is that they're never in balance, it seems like. So because of the diseases, of malnutrition, of injuries, and all of those things, that that state never happens. And to create that, the closest thing we can actually do to physically doing that is somehow like embodying religion by making temples, which is what I was trying to do with building Shanghai. And I'm finding that the problem I found was like with bones, which need to be completely encased to maintain their sounds, to separate themselves from the rest of the world, so that they can't enter that state of perfect balance. But the problem is, for some reason, in everyone there seems to be these pores or holes in the bones, maybe from viruses or something, that prevents that from happening. It only takes one for all of it to leak out and prevent it from happening. And because that's never happened for thousands of years, no one's ever actually lived forever, we're able to summon magic, maybe. So maybe on a small scale they could, but not permanently. And not for that to transition to a different physiology that's not organic. So what I'm finding with that is that, so the way to do that is with architecture, is that I'm finding that the reason these large-scale things we have, such as like clothing or houses or vehicles, are just embodiments of very small parts of the body. So like the back rooms, for example, with the men walking around in these empty hallways with these monsters, seems to actually, to me, remind me of like white blood cells in the human body with viruses in the many walls of the architecture of the nervous system. And it's like also is that the houses and rooms seem to mimic the shape of the inside of the bone. So it's like the objects themselves represents the ideas attempting to manifest into this physical form. And it's that if these rooms, like our bedroom, like your bedroom, is mimicking your bone to teach it to act like how it is, then you realize that what I have in my room is incredibly important because my own physiology is based on the architecture of my room. So like if it's dirty, I might be dirty. So it's like if I have crap everywhere, like just junk I don't need, then I might get junk inside my bones that will help actually make me susceptible to diseases. So it's like plaque or something. So it's the way I found to solve that is by actually just having pure black and white and everything. So it's like somehow I found a way to hack that system is if you just have black and white, so like black and white walls and figures if you have them and clothing and a floor and everything, that it actually prevents that from happening for some reason. And that's why these videos work in their conversion, is that they're black and white, but then it's like why is it okay for them to have gray? Now if it's black and white, and that's because the gray represents not the material itself, but the shading. So it's like, if I think the fact that these videos actually work in our conversion to begin with, in like actually embedding the image into your minds, like it does for me, from making these videos, I can see it like with my eyes closed, is that the reason that happens is that I'm finding is that it's like in the earlier videos I had just black and white, and it seems like something was missing. Like it was almost painful to watch them, and I didn't know why. It's like I was excited to have that format, but it seems like it was too simplistic. Like someone would have, I think, accidentally had these settings. So it's like, why would I have the idea that no one else did this before? And it's like maybe not the specific videos I made. So it's like maybe the only reason it did work was because of specific videos I had that used certain mediums that the other people who use the same type of format didn't use. Maybe it's like stop motion or song or something, but it's like a